Welcome to Coffee and Conversations for Men, a podcast where two men, Jay Guy,
Brian Jones,
sit down to share their stories of struggles, successes, and everything in between as they navigate the ups and downs of life.
Each episode will dive into topics men are curious about as it relates to their fitness, nutrition, relationships, mental health, and lifelong learning. If you're looking for real talk, honest discussions, and practical advice, you're in the right place.
So grab your coffee, sit back, and join us for some candid conversations that will inspire, motivate, and remind you that you are not alone on this journey. So let's get started. In this episode of Coffee and Conversations for Men, we're diving deep into a subject most men avoid. That's grief. Whether it's losing a job, or a loved one, or a pet, or your health, even a lifelong dream, grief hits us all. But how we deal with it, well, that's where it gets real.
And we'll unpack how grief shows up in our bodies, our food, our relationships, and how it can even sneak into our workouts and our moods, and even our silence. Men are taught to man up, but that doesn't make grief disappear. It just hides it until it doesn't.
And whether it's overtraining, or overeating, or emotional shutdown, or even explosive anger, we're breaking down the real signs of male grief. And yes, we will be talking about the 5 stages of grief as well.
But not the way you've heard them before.
Oh, definitely not the way you heard them before.
Think identity crisis, survivor guilt, missed chances, masculine role. This isn't just about death. It's about every kind of loss men carry but rarely name.
So if you've ever felt like you're grieving something and you just really can't explain it, this episode's for you.
So grab your coffee and let's talk grief, the real kind, the kind men need to start naming.
Oh, let's get into it.
Before we dive into this episode, let's talk about why we're having this conversation, Jay. Because for most men, grief is like a shadow we carry, but we rarely name.
Well, we're not just going to be talking about grief, like the loss of a loved one, or that's part of it. But it's about the grief that comes with like losing your job, or when your body changes from injuries or illness, or or from age. And you can't move like you used to.
Or grief of watching your kids grow distance, or losing the dream you chased for years, the business that didn't make it, the career that slipped through your fingers, the silent pain you feel, but you can't explain it.
And like grief is in divorce, missing out on your kid's life, walking away from a community of faith that you used to call home, and realizing that you're not the man you used to be, or you're not even the man that you thought you'd be by now.
And yet we've been told to shake it off, to move on, to not talk about it. But grief doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It just digs deeper. It shows up in your health, your workouts, your sleep, your silence.
Yeah. When we don't give grief a name, it becomes something else. And it comes out in like anger, burnout, addiction, the numbness, so-called numbness. It wears a mask of toughness almost. But underneath it all, it's just unprocessed loss.
And this conversation matters because men are grieving more than they realize it. And no one is talking about it.
Yeah.
And Jay, we're going to change that.
Yeah, we have to. And if you've ever felt the ache of like a missed opportunity, or even looked in the mirror and didn't recognize yourself anymore, if you've ever carried a weight that you couldn't just name, well, then this episode's for you.
And let's stop pretending men don't grieve. Let's start giving each other the space to heal.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Let's get into this.
Jay, what's in your cup today?
Oh, this is a fantastic cup of coffee. This coffee, my oldest daughter and her girlfriend, they went to PEI just recently. And while they were there, they stopped into a coffee shop and they picked up this coffee. It's called Morning Bucket by Receiver Coffee Company.
Never heard of it.
It's fantastic. It's roasted in Charlottetown, PEI. And it's called Morning Bucket because there's a fundraiser behind it, and it's the Buckets for Borders, and it started in 2015 as a project to document basketball culture around the world. And since then,
Oh, cool.
since then they have visited more than 50 countries with this Buckets for Borders Foundation, and it started here in Canada. It's gone globally, but they're a nonprofit organization that uses the proceeds from this coffee
Mm-hmm.
to support communities and bring basketball to people who can't
Really?
afford basketball. Yeah, to
Neat.
be able
Well,
to
how
play
was the
basketball.
coffee taste?
It is
What's it like?
fantastic. It's a medium dark roast, very smooth undertones, and it's almost like a woody undertone.
Oh, really?
It's really nice,
You know
like
what?
almost
That's
like a barrel.
very
It's-
similar to mine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mine is Mountain View Coffee, and it's a fair trade organic coffee. It's a medium,
Nice.
and it's from the private organization, but the website is www.estatescoffee.com.
Nice.
And the money raised there, it's all fair trade. So it's
that's
kind
very
of
cool.
it's neat, and it's very tasty.
Oh yeah. What's the
So-
undertone in yours?
Yeah, I would say a woody taste, very similar
Really?
to yours.
Oh, it's very similar.
So
right?
I should try yours.
We'll
to
have
see
to
what
we'll have to
can-
share.
All right, let's get into this.
Cheers, brother. All right, Brian. This one's going to be a heavy one, and rightly so.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's get right into it. How do you link fitness and grief, Jay?
Grief for fitness is more than just related to death. You know, I mean, everybody when they think of grief, they just immediately go to a loss of a loved one.
Right.
But there's just so many ways that we deal with grief that we don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So for fitness, it has nothing to do with death.
Right.
In the physical sense of putting somebody in the ground.
Right.
But when we think about grief, that's what we equate it to is death. But it's much more than just any loss. It's much more than any of that. It's sometimes a loss of an identity. It's a loss of a relationship. It's a loss of a friendship. It's a friendship that ends abruptly
Mm-hmm.
with no explanation,
Right.
with no reason why. And that can lead to grief.
Yeah.
You know, you're grieving this lost friendship. How come?
Yeah.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
What happened? Why did we lose touch, right? So the loss of a limb, whether it's a car accident, whether it's an illness, whether it's the loss of independence, from age. How many senior citizens lose their independence
Mm-hmm.
from from aging out,
Mhm.
just from aging, and you don't think they're grieving?
Mm-hmm.
I find this happening to myself a lot more often as my parents get older. You know, things become a little more difficult for them than they used to be, and they require a little more help than they used to, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
They have children to depend on for
Mhm.
that. You know, things aren't as quite as easy as they used to be. And, you know, a handful of years ago, my dad would have just done something
Right.
without thinking about calling for help, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. But as you age and as things get more difficult, you have to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Put that aside and ask for help. Otherwise, you're going to injure yourself.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
which he has.
Oh.
which he has. And I mean, and that's just put your pride aside and go for it.
Yeah.
Make the phone call and be like, hey, son,
I know.
so
Easier said than done.
can any chance you can help me with this, man? So all of these things have a grief period, and rightly so. And rightly so. Oftentimes we don't understand what the grieving looks like, but it looks different for everyone.
Mhm.
It really does. For me, for fitness, when my high school track career ended, I had this long grieving period, and I didn't even know it. But there was this void, there was this hole where this other person, this just track kid,
Mhm.
used to be. And I loved it so much. I love track so much.
Mhm.
I loved it so much. And there was nothing that filled that void. Nothing. Absolutely. And I tried a lot of things to fill that void, and there was nothing that could fill that void, the miss of a track. And I would visit as often as I could. I would visit the track, and I would run drills, and I would run sprints, and I would just keep myself active. I would go back to my old high school, and I would, work with the relay team and work with the middle distance runners, and we would, run drills and techniques, but nothing really filled that void. For me, it was track. For others, it's the end of an athletic
Yeah.
football career or high school or a hockey career, not just the loss of a loved one, or just as simple as the inconsistencies of your training routine. Falling off the wagon again. Oh shit! My New Year's resolution. Well, shit, man, it's March and I haven't been since January.
Yeah.
So but those are grieving. I mean, they may not feel like it. It feels like disappointment, but there is a period of grief behind that, right? And so all of those factors emotionally impact us with some sort of grief. Yeah. According to the research. And, grief is not a disorder. It is not a disease.
No.
It is not a sign of weakness.
Not at all.
It is an emotional and spiritual, physical necessity to go through. And it is a piece of your body, whether it's aging out, whether it's moving on. You need to let your body, your mind, and your spirit grieve.
Wow. You know what? Mine is similar. I'll just share with you that, in the last episode, episode 11, we talked about identity, and I got quite emotional about retiring and not losing my identity. And it was interesting. I didn't expect the grieving that I was going to go through. And yes, the routine had changed. My sense of identity had changed. Who was I without the role of my career? My schedule changed. My structure changed. The title gave me purpose. And without it, I felt a loss. And that's what I was grieving.
Right.
But it was interesting. Grieving showed up in my fitness because I went overboard as a way to deal with my grieving. So I took step classes, I rode bikes, I prepared for half marathons, I participated in Tough Mudders, I went to boot camps, I signed up for F45 while I was going to Anytime Fitness. I joined the Facebook group, I became a moderator for Dad's Bod Transformation, I did Tabata classes. I just went overboard.
You dove in.
Exactly. And I convinced myself that I was doing it to stay healthy, that I was being productive and I was thriving in this post-retirement. But underneath it, what I was really running from was grief. I was chasing a sense of control that I had lost.
That makes sense.
And what was happening to me physically is my body was exhausted. I was losing some sleep. My mind was racing. My heart was pounding. I'd wake up sore. I'd wake up stiff. I'd wake up foggy. But I'd push through it, thinking I could do this. And the cortisol in my head was just going through the roof. And cognitively, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was busy. And I was not being present. And my mind was being hijacked by routines and challenges and next goals. And I just wasn't sitting there and letting it
sink
happen.
in. Yeah.
I
Okay.
wasn't.
Yeah.
And emotionally, I was numb. And from the outside, everything was great. Everything it looked good. How are you? I'm fine. And we've used that line before.
Yeah.
I was engaged. I was motivated. I thought I was strong, but inside I was disconnected from this grief and this honesty that I wasn't admitting. And I was a grieving man. I used to be. And one of the things that really got to me was this unstructured life that I needed to fill. And so I didn't embrace grief. I didn't move through it. I was just camouflaging it with fitness. And that's what I want to say to any guy who's listening. If your fitness routine is helping you stay strong, great. But if it's the only place where you feel like you're in control, then it might be time to ask you, what are you running from?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
I've mentioned that in a couple.
Yeah.
In other episodes.
Yeah. What are you running
hiding
from?
in the gym. Yeah.
Hiding in the gym.
Yeah.
And grief, doesn't just sit in your heart. It shows up in your body. And until you stop long enough and name that grief, there's no amount of sweat, no amount of reps, no transformation group can bring peace. And I still do fitness activities now, but now I believe I'm doing them for the right reason.
Yeah, and no matter how much you hide in the gym, no matter how much you train, no matter how hard you try, it will show up in other parts of
Yeah.
your life, in your relationships,
Yeah,
in your
it
in your
does.
friendships.
Yeah.
It will show up. Because if that's the only place you find peace, if that's the only place you feel in control, when you're not in the gym, it will
Yeah.
creep out.
Yeah.
It will find you
Yeah.
outside of the gym.
You're right.
Okay, Brian, moving on to our nutrition segment.
You know, that's something we don't talk about, where we connect grief in the context of food. But
Mm.
for me, it showed up loud and clear in the kitchen, on my plate, and eventually on the scales.
Oh, how so? How so? How so?
Well, I was grieving something that I didn't even know the name at the time. And what I was grieving was missed moments. The
Mhm.
years I spent chasing career milestones while my daughters were growing up. And I know we've talked about this in a previous episode. I think it was Balance, no, the father episode 9.
Mm.
And I wasn't present for
Mm.
some of those
Yeah.
key dad moments
Right.
because I was so involved in my career. And that's when the truth finally caught up with me. And I didn't cry.
Mhm.
What I did was I ate.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. So, okay, can I ask you a question?
sure,
Can I pry a little bit? Do you mind?
go
Okay.
for it.
So, if I could ask you, what did grief look like on your plate? What
Oh,
did it look
I
like?
was constantly in a rush. So many meals weren't moments. They were just fuel to keep me going. My wife was a shift worker at the time. So, you know, it was fast food, it was late night snacking, grabbing things that were easy to eat. I overate. And what I craved was comfort food. And, you know, comfort food, those
Yeah,
complex
I
carbs
do. Yeah.
and sugars.
Yeah.
And not because I was hungry, but
Mhm.
because I think I was hurting
Yeah. And that's what
inside.
you mentioned about grazing
Yeah, it was.
all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you mean then.
And this
Yeah.
and I went from my ideal weight,
Mhm.
and it slowly climbed until I was carrying an extra 50 pounds.
Oh.
And then that's 26 kilos. And for our UK listeners, that's 4 stone.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge when you think about it. An
Yeah.
extra 50 pounds on me,
Yeah.
very noticeable.
Right.
And it didn't happen overnight. It crept in.
Mhm.
And the same way that grief creeps in,
Mhm.
quietly, invisibly, until suddenly you feel the weight.
Mhm. There's what's the research behind this is the gut brain grief loop.
Well, here's what I didn't know back then, and it makes total sense now.
Mhm.
But there's a real connection between grief, the gut, and the brain. Now, I understand that grief disrupts the healthy bacteria in your gut. There's
Yeah.
a name for it.
Yeah. It's called the microbiome.
Okay, the
Yeah.
microbiome,
Yeah.
and that when that's off,
Yeah.
it triggers inflammation.
Yeah.
Messes up with your mood,
Yeah.
your sleep,
Yeah.
and your energy. And here's the kicker: when your body starts craving food
Mhm.
to make your body feel safe.
That's right.
And so sugar, carbs, anything that gives you the temporary dopamine hit, I craved. And what would start off as comfort food became coping. And that coping just became a habit. You know, and men don't talk about this stuff. You know, we joke about, yeah, we got a dad bod, or we say that we love to eat. But food can be an emotional mask.
Yeah.
Just like working out or drinking or zoning out in front of the TV, whatever, it's a mask.
Yeah.
And grief didn't look like sadness. It looked like skipping meals and binging what I ate. It looked like telling myself I just need to be busy. And I was emotionally full, but I was starving. And in terms of loss, when I finally slowed down and started naming what I had lost, the time I couldn't get back, I realized I wasn't just feeding my body. I was really feeding my regret for missed moments. And I was trying to fill in the food that was never meant to fill. And what I was doing, and I wish, like, if anything, if men who are listening to this can remember, if you're eating out of control, if your body feels heavier than usual, if your energy is crashing, maybe it isn't an issue of food. Maybe it's the grief and a loss of something.
Control. Could be control. Yeah. Could be a loss of, could be shame, grief, like you say, like shame tied to the grief. It could be a loss of control tied to that grief.
Right.
And and you're using the food to cope with it.
And I did. I did. Now, how does this nutrition and grief connect with you?
Well, so I mean, it looks different for all of us, and most of the time, it's not obvious at all, at all, and it doesn't even look like grieving for some people. It looks more like I said, disappointment,
Okay.
right,
So how did that show up?
or sadness, or even frustration. So you for if you have a goal set in mind,
Right.
whether it's a competition,
Yeah.
whether it's a tough mudder, whether it's
Yeah.
whatever, and you're struggling to get your diet under control, or whether it's a upcoming birthday or
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a vacation or whatever, and you're like, man, I'm gonna look so jacked when I get on that beach on
Mhm.
vacation,
Mhm.
or for my birthday, or for our anniversary when we go away, blah blah blah,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can't get your diet under control. It comes out in frustration, disappointment, and then you're disappointed in yourself. So then what are you doing for comfort? You're feeding yourself.
Mhm.
You're like, fuck it.
Mhm.
I'm doing it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's another botched diet plan. I'll start Monday.
Mhm.
Yeah, I fell off the wagon again. I'll just start Monday. Just another failed attempt. Big deal.
Mhm.
So I don't have the summer bod I wanted. Okay, so what? We're moving on. Or it's a change because of the doctor's orders. It's it's a medical condition, or it's something, there's underlying illness or whatever that the doctor is telling you to change your eating habits, and they're unfamiliar, so you keep screwing that up. And
Yeah.
there's foods that you're supposed to be eating, but they're unfamiliar to you, so you keep screwing
Yeah,
that up,
yeah.
and you're not allowed to eat this, that, or the other.
Mhm.
Yet that's what you're used to the whole time growing up.
Mhm.
Overeating or emotional eating is, like you say, is called a comfort food, but it's definitely attached to something. It might be unchecked, and it might definitely be from your past.
Mhm.
100%. I think the research says it's from your past, but I think it's things that you haven't put in check yet, but you know it's there.
Right.
So there are things that we do. There are behaviors that we have that we react to, but we don't know why. There's triggers that we have that set us off, that do things, but we have no idea why. And so you go through therapy, you unpack, blah blah blah, and
Mhm.
you learn.
Mhm.
But there are things that trigger us, and we know exactly why. We know exactly why, and a lot of times those foods take that place.
Right.
Yeah, and so, or the opposite side of the coin of the overeating
Mhm.
is undereating, and that leads to anorexia,
Yeah, yeah.
bulimia, binge eating, that kind of stuff. And according to the research, an eating disorder is a mental disorder that's defined by an abnormal eating behavior, or adversely affects the person's physical or mental health. The behaviors may include eating too much or eating too little, and then as well as body issues, the way you see yourself
Right.
physically
Mhm.
has a mental impact on you as well. So you undereat or overeat depending on how you see yourself. If you're overeating or undereating, or you have an emotional tie to eating,
Mhm.
please seek help.
Yeah.
It's
You
okay.
need to.
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
attached to something, and you just don't have control
You're right.
over it.
Wow.
Okay, Brian, we're moving on to mental health here. What do you got? You want to start this one?
Yeah, I do. Because it's a tough one for me.
Okay.
You know that when we talk about mental health, most guys assume we're talking about depression or anxiety or burnout. And yet that can be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really underneath some of it is actually grief.
Mm.
And not just the kind that you feel when someone dies, but the kind that comes from trauma, from losing something you never got a chance to fully process. And that's what happened to me.
Okay.
Grief, and you said that earlier, grief is not a mental illness. It's a natural, necessary response to loss.
Mm-hmm.
But when it sticks around long enough, when it gets buried, ignored, suppressed, it can turn into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pleased when I read the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to abbreviate to the what is it? The DSM-5. Actually added something called prolonged grief disorder in 2022. And when I read the criteria, God, it was so close to home because my loss is through a trauma, through an unprocessed grief. Um, and when I was a preteen and going into my teenage years, I went through something that was traumatic. And it's one of those moments that carried on that just kind of rewired my body and my brain. But at the time, I did not have the tools to deal with it, and I just bottled it up. It built an armor around me,
Okay.
and I told myself that this is just normal behavior. It is just adolescent behavior. Just suck it up, be strong, like a lot of men do.
Yeah.
They're just told to suck it up, be strong, and get on with life. Well, you know what happened when a bottle gets too much pressure in it?
Oh, sure, dude. Yeah.
And it eventually starts to crack. And it, it didn't come in tears. It didn't come in sadness. It showed up in my early 50s. And it was like a slow leak.
Yeah. Oh, you pushed it down for a long time.
Oh my God, decades.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly I was displaying some behavior that I had hid, and I was restless and careless and chasing distractions, questioning everything from the purpose to my identity. And some people would call it like a midlife crisis.
Yeah. As many do.
I know, but looking back, it was grief, the kind that I had never dealt with. And it was a grief for a younger version of me who never felt safe enough to speak.
Oh, to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And grief for time lost, trust broken, and emotions denied. And here's something that I wish that more men knew, that we don't all grieve with tears. Sometimes we grieve out of anger, irritability, obsession with work. Some people will pick fights. Some will numb out with habits that we don't talk about. And we're taught to suck it up. But all this just is shoved down and until it hijacks your behavior, and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And suppressed grief doesn't disappear.
No, it does not.
It mutates, and it can become anxiety, panic, depression, or even addiction. And some guys will drink, some other guys will overexercise, some will disappear into work or relationships. For me, it was searching for my identity. Who am I? Who am I? And when I started to really unpack it and figure out that, and this was the help of a therapist, naming it, the trauma, facing the grief, I realized how much it had shaped my life without me even realizing it. And I thought I was just going through this phase. And when I suddenly realized that I was grieving something I hadn't allowed myself to feel for decades.
Wow.
It just... yeah, and I feel much better now in the healing process of working. It's not moving on; it's working through.
And you also have doing the therapy and unpacking things and learning and growing. You also have tools that you never had when that traumatic experience happened.
Right.
You have tools now that you.
But I'm also thinking about
on.
the number of guys who've bottled down things that have happened to them because you know what, so it's a past, forget it, let's move on. Let's get on with
I'll
it.
be damned if I'm talking about it.
But it's bubbling in,
always
it comes out in places that you won't believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about it in another episode where I said, when you get triggered and you're in a room full of people and you go from 0 to 100
easily,
and everybody's looking at you like, what the fuck was that? Like, where did that come from? And nobody can make sense why you freaked out over this tiny little thing. But it's because you're holding on to something else.
The armor had a crack, and it's starting to ooze there. And then there's another crack happens over here, and it starts to ooze there.
100%.
And it comes out in different manifestations. So.
Yeah, and sometimes it's ugly. And sometimes it's really ugly in a room full of people. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And some of that behavior hurts other people.
Yeah, and when it slips out, yeah, it's unintentional.
Yeah.
And it's unintentional hurt that comes out.
Yeah.
And that situation is now a hurtful situation for someone, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't deal with it, and now it's hurt that person's feelings. Yeah, I know. Grief is crazy. It comes out in so many different ways.
Well, what about you for mental health?
So for me, I want to start mine from the conclusion of the book Unfuck Your Grief by Faith G. Harper. Grief isn't a mental illness. There isn't a timeline. You aren't doing anything wrong, or too much, or for too long. And I'd also like to add to that by saying, grieving your way on your timeline, unapologetically, give yourself permission to grieve, because we all do it.
Yeah.
We all grieve. This isn't an exclusively you thing.
No, it's so hard to do.
Yeah, but grieving your way is exactly that. It is an exclusively you thing when you do it your way, unapologetically. So do it your way. I was completely devastated a handful of years ago when I had fallen short from a job promotion.
I remember.
A promotion that I had worked my ass off to achieve. A promotion that just naturally looked like the next step in my career. A promotion that never really seemed out of reach, yet it slipped right through my fingers.
Yeah.
And I fell flat on my face because it was always out of reach. Just somehow, it was always out of reach. And I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how to move forward, and I had no idea what came next. And then I had no idea what to think of myself.
Yeah.
Or who I was without it.
Yeah.
And that grieving period lasted a long, long time. And I think I went through the 5 stages. Well, I know I went through all 5 stages of grief through that period. And I'm gonna, for those that don't know, I'm just gonna talk about that. So the most well-known model of grief, of the 5 stages of grief, of the Kubler-Ross model, which includes denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And the research says, however, these 5 stages aren't experienced in a linear order, and sometimes many people don't experience all of them all at once. It can take years to experience all 5. But I sure as hell
And you
did.
can move back and forth.
Oh yeah, you can. You bounce around.
Yeah,
you can bounce around.
You do, and you did.
Oh, I did. Oh my God, I did.
Yeah.
And I sure as hell did. And although I didn't know it then, but it was a blessing in disguise.
How so?
So I was too busy. Great question. I was too busy grieving, or better yet, I was too busy trying to make sense of what had happened, that it was almost impossible to grieve at that moment. And I had a lot of things to work on. And that promotion, had it have gone the opposite way, that promotion would have gotten in the way of me doing the work, or me being able to do the work on myself, because I would have just immersed myself into that situation, and I never would have been able to work on me, because I would have put that first.
Yeah.
And Jim Carrey describes grief not as an emotion to be overcome, but as a companion, or a quote unquote tenant that you need to learn to live with and to move with from moment to moment, and not move on from.
And we want to kick that tenant out, but that tenant's there.
And he suggests that grief is a natural part of life, and it's a testament to the love and the connection that you've experienced, and an opportunity to find a deeper understanding of you and your healing. And he advises honoring those feelings and allowing the process to unfold without a timeline, and to find ways that you can carry both the love and the grief of the loss together.
Yeah, your own timeline.
Your own timeline on your own, in your own way.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like is the most important thing. Do it your way without apology of how long it takes. And my advice is grieve, grow, and go.
Say it again.
Grieve. Allow yourself, give yourself permission.
Yeah.
Grieve, grow from the experience, and go, which is the move on.
Let's
Let it go. Let it go and move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grieve.
That's hard to
grow,
do.
and go.
Because you
It was
crashed.
very, oh my God. When I say I fell flat on my face, I did. I
Yeah.
crashed. I fell flat on my face.
Yeah. Well, that denial, first of all, you were pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through all 5.
Oh, sure you did.
And
Yeah.
I went through all 5 publicly,
Yes. Yeah.
very
you did.
publicly.
Yeah.
In professional settings and in my personal settings. I went through all 5 and could not control all 5.
Right.
And it just openly went through all 5 and couldn't control it.
Mhm.
And that was really, really hard.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So my advice is grieve, grow, and go.
And go. Jay, our 4th pillar is relationships.
Yeah.
So how does this align with grief and you and your story?
Well, for relationships, for me, so I was really close with my grandmother on my dad's side of the family. We had a really special bond, and I mean, I'm sure that everybody who knew her felt the same way.
Yeah.
Felt the same way about her. They would say the same thing. Oh, I had a really special bond with Florence. Blah blah blah. Yeah. You did great, but I did. That was, I had a special bond with her. She was mine. Anyhow, when I was trying to figure out my life and trying to put the pieces together, she was a big part of that. She made me feel like she was my safety net. She was a secure place for me and a safe space for me. She was a stable environment for me to figure out what my next step was, because I didn't have a clue what that was. I didn't have a clue what that was at that time. And she made me feel like if it took longer to figure my shit out, well, that was okay too. Mm-hmm. She made me feel like that. Like if it takes longer to figure your shit out, that's all right. That's okay. And that she didn't have a timeline attached to me figuring it out, or there wasn't an expectation that it would be figured out by such and such a date. Jay, you got to have it figured out by blah, blah, blah. No, there was never that. There was never any of that. And she always gave you the space to feel however you needed to feel in that moment. Sad? Go ahead. Go ahead, be sad. She didn't care. Go ahead, be sad. You want to be sad. If you needed to grieve, go ahead. Go ahead. She gave you permission to do that too. She gave you the space to grieve. You want to cry? You want to grab a lemon meringue pie? Let's go get one. You need to cry? Let's go. Let's get a pie, man. To go with that tear, That's how she was, right? She gave you the permission. She made it feel like okay. She made it feel like it was okay to cry. She gave you that space. And nearing the end of her life, she was forgetting a lot of things. People, places, dates, stuff like that, right? And, a lot of the to be expected stuff as people age out, and that was really hard to watch. And she was always the most independent person that I've ever met. Always cutting her own lawn, always shoveling her own driveway, always going to get her own groceries. Like she was the most independent person that I've ever met. And I was really upset for her when she was losing her independence and her physical independence and her mental sharpness, her mental independence, to do things, to think for herself, to physically do things for herself. That really upset me. Really upset me that she was losing and there was nothing she could do about it. Well, there was nothing at all she could do about it. There was nothing any of us could do about it for her on her behalf. And when she passed, I gave myself permission to grieve for her without any timeline, without any emotional limitations, and without any apologies of how bad ugly crying looked. Mm-hmm. I let myself have it. Yeah. For her, out of respect for her, I let myself have it. And sometimes, you hear people say, "Oh, I'm not ready to talk about that yet," or "It's too soon." It's too soon to talk about that yet. And that's most likely because they haven't finished processing the emotions that are attached to that situation or attached to that loved one. And they haven't given themselves permission to grieve yet. And they haven't given themselves permission to let it all out. Right. And if you have a loved one that you were really close with, out of respect for them, give yourself permission to grieve them. Yeah. Just respect it enough to be sad, miss them, love them, grieve for them, cry for them. Give yourself permission to do it. Love them in your way, out of love for them,
Mhm.
just go ahead and have a tear
Good,
for them.
good. And you
Yeah.
did.
I did. Oh,
You
I had a
did.
lot.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did. Yeah, I did for a long time. I shed a lot of tears for her. Yeah.
You know what? Your story has to do with the grieving, losing a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't often talk about grief in the context of relationships that don't end
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in death.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a loss of a friendship. It's not death, but the loss of a friendship can just be as hard.
Yeah.
And I've had a few of those in my life, friendships that I felt that were built to last. We shared stories, we shared adventures, we were there for each other until one day
Mm-hmm.
we weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I kept replaying the endings, trying to figure out what went wrong. Did I say something? Did I miss a sign? Was it me? And then it hit me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only 50% of this friendship.
We're 100%. Yeah.
The other half, it's not mine to control.
Yeah.
Some people are in our lives for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Some are in our lives for a season,
Mm-hmm.
and yet some are there for a lifetime. But grief doesn't care which category that falls into. It shows up when a connection ends.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest part about losing a close friend, and it's not an argument, wasn't an argument because of what someone had said.
Mm-hmm.
It was the silence afterward.
Yeah.
The slow fade, the unanswered text, the realization that they're not showing up anymore in your stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that there's a grieving point
There sure
over
is.
that.
Yeah.
And a lot of men don't talk about this. When we lose friendships, especially ones that are anchored us emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy just to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
We've been told to just brush it off. People grow apart. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't say is how much it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And now I used to think that grief groups were just for people who lost a spouse or lost a parent. But there's peer-led groups for men, especially, who are doing something or are just as important in those groups. And they're normalizing grief in all forms. Including the stuff we don't usually talk about, and even us having this topic
Mm-hmm.
here on the podcast allows us to give permission for people to grieve.
Yeah.
Which is key, because when friendships drift or end suddenly, it leaves a space, and you either learn to sit with that grief, or you start filling it with habits that don't help. And we've talked about the habits that don't necessarily help.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have to admit,
Mm-hmm.
Parts of me wanted closure.
Mm-hmm.
I want an apology. I want a reason. I want something neat and tidy. But grief is not tidy at
Not at
all.
all. Not at all.
And sometimes there's no ending. And maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe I behaved in a way that I couldn't see at the time, or maybe the season just ended. And I know a couple of my friendships. I know it just wasn't distance in time. It was me.
Mm-hmm.
It was my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I did something I should not have done. And I hurt some people I cared about, and they moved on. And honestly, I have to respect their choice. Sometimes walking away is what someone needs to protect their peace. And even when you understand why it ended, and even when you accept responsibilities and you wish them well, there's still grief.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a loss of what was. And you can hold regret in one hand and growth in another hand. And you can be okay with the ending, but you still have the memories. And what I've learned about the friendships that I've lost over the years is grief doesn't necessarily have to show up when people die. It shows up when people drift away, when expectations aren't met, and we maybe outgrow each other, and nobody knows or says it out loud. So yes, grief happens when a loved one passes away, but also when a friendship ends. There's incredible grief.
Yeah.
Incredible grief there. Any advice that you want to leave the guys with?
Yeah, I'm a part of one of those stories of a friendship kind of just coming to an end abruptly, and the person did nothing wrong. And that just ties back into my story of trying to figure my shit out. Sometimes the other 50% of that is just trying to figure themselves out. And they're poisoned to that friendship, and they just got to step back for a sec.
And it's okay to grieve something that doesn't have to be at a funeral. And it's okay to miss someone.
That's right.
Even after
they've let you go.
Mhm.
So don't isolate yourself in the process. It's your story. It's not done yet. Make more connections ahead,
Yeah.
and be open to that.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100% because the isolation part is what I did
Yeah.
to that friendship. And now looking back,
Yeah.
I handled that wrong. I
Yeah.
know I
Yeah.
did. And I handled that friendship and that departure
And you own
completely
it.
wrong. I own it.
Yeah.
I had to own it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jay, this is friggin' heavy.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
This one is. And
we have one pillar left.
Listen, I knew this one was going to be a heavy one. I really did. Doing my notes for this, I knew this was going to be emotionally heavy. I knew this was going to be a really difficult one. And honestly, I think we're doing well. I think we're giving respect where respect is due.
There's a lot of firsts coming out in this.
There is a lot of firsts coming out of this for both of us. Yeah. So I would also like to add, though, this podcast is not just entertainment purposes.
No, not at all.
We are entangled in each other's lives. And so our last segment, I talked about my grandmother. And it just hit me that in talking about her in that segment and saying goodbye to her, you were a part of helping me say goodbye to her. You were there for her, for the wake. You were present there, met my family, and said your respects for my family, to my family and to my grandmother, and you were there in those moments. So you were part of that grieving. When my family was grieving.
I remember
my
standing there and the slides were rolling and the pictures, and you were going over some wonderful stories. And there was laughter happening in various parts of the room of people telling stories and people seeing each other in connection and remembering the lemon meringue pies. And it was pretty powerful. But that's all part of grieving.
It is, and she was an incredible woman. She left behind one hell of a legacy for herself.
Good.
And we are, like I said, we are entangled in each other's lives, and we are a part of each other's lives more than just this podcast. And that's what makes this podcast amazing.
It's working out.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to our lifelong learning segment and our lessons learned.
All right, let's move on. All right, Brian. In moving on, then let's move on to our last segment, which is lifelong learning.
So, we talk about grief. We often talk about what we've lost. But there's another side of the coin that we don't explore very much, and what it leaves behind. Because sometimes in the quiet after the loss, we start to learn. We start to think about, okay, so where's the learning in this? Something awful has happened. And where can I grow? What can I do? And it doesn't happen right away. But it could be weeks, months, years, decades later. You look back on that experience that you've grieved through and like, what's the lesson in this? What did I learn? What can I take forward? And it's taught me that some of those lessons are gifts. And in my life, I've lost some very close people in my life. Both my grandfathers, my grandparents, they passed away before I had a chance to sit down with them and ask some big questions and learn their stories. And I'll be honest, it's a huge weight that I have on my shoulders because I never took the time to spend with them. And it's not regret necessarily, but it's a yearning for a conversation that never happened.
Oh yeah, missed opportunity.
A missed opportunity.
Right.
A close friend of mine, unfortunately, he died in his 30s from AIDS. And he was somewhat closeted. He was scared to tell his friends, his family, and fearing of what they would think of him. And to this day, some of those friends and families still believe he died of colon cancer. And that grief, it's layered with sadness and with silence. And it taught me how shame can steal not just a life, but a whole legacy. My brother-in-law, unfortunately, he was killed in a work-related accident a few years back. My sister packed his lunch that morning, and she had no idea that would be their last goodbye. There was no warning, no closure, just a knock at the door by a police officer.
Oh my God.
And as a retired principal and educator, I've attended a number of student funerals, young lives gone way before these kids had a chance to be teenagers. And those memories don't fade. At all. They mark you. Now, fortunately, I've been journaling for the past, 44 years. And it's been a constant companion
of mine to journal, to write down not just what happened, but unpacking what it means, how I felt, what I feared, what I learned. I'm a big advocate for men's mental health, but also it's not just the speaking out about it. It's the listening, it's the connecting, it's building space
Mhm.
where it's okay to feel.
Mhm.
And storytelling, we're big on that. We
Yeah.
like to tell stories
Mhm.
in each of our components and our pillars
Mhm.
on the episode, and there's huge relief in sharing those stories, and that's backed up by the researcher Dan McAdams. He
Mhm.
talks about the idea of narrative identity, how we build our sense of self through stories that we tell.
Mhm.
And grief becomes part of those stories. Grief can push us to ask better questions.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can explore ideas.
Mhm.
For some guys, grief causes them to go back to school
Mhm.
or causes them to start a new path, a new career, or just sit long enough to try to think, what is this teaching me?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So when you, like we said, when you give yourself permission to grieve, you're also giving yourself the opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That grieve, that grow, and the go.
Yeah. So Jay, what about yourself?
Well, I think it's safe to say that over the past hour, we've learned that grieving takes on many forms, and it can look different from person to person. And one of our potential episodes, one of the potential titles for this episode was going to be "Crying in Your Car Counts,"
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to take a second to touch on that. For anybody who's listening, that counts. You better bet your ass that counts. I am certain that we've all done it at some point in our lives. We've all done it. We've all sat in our car and cried for one reason or another. You believe, things have gone a certain way, or you're grieving things in a certain way, and you feel like the car is the best place to do it. And I think we look for the car because the car feels safe. The car feels like it gives you a sense of solitude or security. And it's somewhere you can express all of those emotions without an audience, without judgment, without fear, without someone thinking that you're just overreacting. So I think that's why we try and find those moments of solitude and safety, is because we don't want that judgment of feeling like we're grieving the wrong way or we're doing it wrong. Like I had talked about in the last segment about, you're not doing it wrong or too long. And this is what I mean by trying to find somewhere with solitude, right? And I think that's where we go wrong, because when you look for the car, you're still being alone.
Right.
You're still doing it on your own. So I think finding those in your life that are allowing you to do grief your way, on your timeline, and how you feel like it needs to be done for you is more important than finding the car and being alone in your grief, because you don't have to be alone in your grief. You need to find loved ones that will allow you to grieve your way. I can tell you for certain, I have cried in my car.
Me too.
I
Last
have
week.
screamed at the top of my lungs in the car. In frustration, I have gripped the steering wheel and shaken myself into comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And I have vented to the heavens. I have begged with the universe to hear me. All in the security of my car. Because it felt safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because it felt like that was the place to do it, because then at least nobody sees me freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
It felt safe. But again, when we find those places of solitude, we're doing it alone. And that's the narrative that needs to change. The grieving alone. That's what we need to address here, right? Give yourself the permission to experience those micro moments of grief and to share them with people who are going to allow you to heal your own way. And I love this quote. I love this quote. Grief is like glitter. You can throw a handful of it into the air, but when you try to clean it up, you never get it all. Even long after the event, you still find glitter tucked everywhere. It's in every corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the place. And it will always be there somewhere.
Somewhere. It's not going away.
It's not going away.
No,
No,
not at all.
Throw that in the air. Throw the glitter in the air. Where it falls, it falls.
Yeah.
That's what grief is like. Do it your way, however it may look. What's ugly crying look like for you? Find people that will allow you to ugly cry without judgment.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go for it. Just let it all out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the moment you give grief a voice,
Yeah.
it becomes something more than just pain.
Absolutely.
It becomes wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I couldn't agree more with you. You need to find a safe place to do it. And honestly, crying in the car counts. Don't get me wrong. If that's how you need, because you don't have those around you that you feel comfortable with grieving in front of. So that counts. But just know that grieving alone doesn't always have to be done alone. And that wraps up another episode of Coffee and Conversations for Men. Thanks for spending time with us. We truly appreciate it.
Be sure to check out the show notes for resources, links, everything we've covered today. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode.
And if you've enjoyed this conversation, share with a friend or leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can follow us on Instagram at Coffee and Conversations for Men. That's 4 as in the number 4.
Got a topic you'd like us to explore? Reach out and let us know. Just a quick reminder, we're not therapists, counselors, or licensed professionals. Just two longtime friends sharing real stories and lessons from our own lives.
So if you're facing challenges in your health, mental well-being, or relationships, we encourage you to seek guidance from qualified professionals.
We hope our conversations sparked reflection, encourage growth, and help you feel more connected. Until next time,
this is Jay and Brian reminding you to grab your coffee
or your favorite drink
and keep the conversations going. So stay strong,
stay curious,
and stay connected.